The sad love story of Helen Keller, who loved only one man for a lifetime. Though she could neither see nor hear, Helen Keller dedicated her life to helping others and fought for the rights of the marginalized as a prominent social activist. However, the fact that she loved one man throughout her life is not widely known. Keller, who lived as a person with severe disabilities and remained single all her life, is often treated as a saint by some who consider her a miracle of the 20th century. Yet, in the 21st century, criticism has emerged that such views reproduce another form of discrimination against people with disabilities. In reality, Keller had a beloved man in her life, who was 7 years younger and quite handsome. Why was Keller's love completely disregarded? It was partly a product of the prejudices of her time, but perhaps it also stemmed from the public's desire to remember Keller as the miraculous girl who overcame tremendous disabilities or as a saint. Born in 1880 in Tuscumbia, Alabama, Helen Keller contracted a fever, suspected to be meningitis or scarlet fever, at the age of 19 months, which left her deaf and blind. However, she overcame these challenges, mastering 5 languages including English, Greek, Latin, French, and German, and eventually gained admission to the prestigious Radcliffe College, where she graduated with honors. This remarkable achievement was largely due to her one and only teacher, Anne Sullivan. Anne Sullivan, who herself had visual impairments, met the 7-year-old Helen Keller, who was completely unable to communicate, and taught her Braille and sign language. She helped Keller learn to speak by using lip movements and vibrations. Sullivan was indeed the benefactor who changed Keller's life. However, when Keller turned 36 in 1916, conflicts arose between Keller and Sullivan, escalating to a breaking point due to a man, specifically, a handsome man 7 years her junior. In 1914, Keller began receiving assistance from a stranger instead of her ever-present teacher, Sullivan. This change occurred when Sullivan fell ill with tuberculosis and had to leave Keller, allowing Peter Fagan to step in to help. At 29 years old, Peter was a former reporter for the Boston Herald and a friend of Sullivan's husband, John Macy. Despite not having received training in caring for individuals with disabilities, he quickly learned tactile signing, impressing Keller within days. Peter wrote the contents of newspapers on Keller's palm each morning, created Braille books for her, and accompanied her wherever she went. During this time, Keller was advocating against the inequalities present in American society, not only for people with disabilities but also for women denied voting rights and workers in poor conditions, while also opposing racial discrimination and advocating for peace during the war, which drew criticism from conservative media. In truth, Peter had fallen in love with Helen Keller as well. Like Keller, Peter was a socialist and an anti-war activist who opposed fascism and inequality. He had long admired Keller's unwavering beliefs and, while working closely with her, he unknowingly fell in love. Keller recorded her feelings about Peter's confession, stating, "His love was like a bright sun illuminating the helplessness and isolation I had felt. The sweetness of being loved captivated me, and I could not resist the powerful desire to become part of a man." He was the first man to tell her she was beautiful and to confess his love for her, igniting feelings in Keller. Then one day, Anne Sullivan recovered her health and returned, forcing Peter to part ways with Helen Keller. Faced with separation, the two promised to marry and soon submitted a marriage license to the Boston court. There was even an article in the Boston local newspaper announcing their engagement. Keller expressed her desire to marry Peter, but Sullivan, who was in a troubled and separated state from her husband, John Macy, vehemently opposed their union. Sullivan even fired Peter, whom she had hired on her husband's recommendation. Keller's mother also opposed the marriage, leading Keller to be taken back to her family home in Montgomery, Alabama. Her brother-in-law even pointed a gun at Peter, urging him to break off the relationship, and the letters exchanged between the couple were burned. Eventually, the two resolved to elope. Keller set out to meet Peter, abandoning her family, and waited all night for him to arrive, but he never showed up at their agreed-upon meeting place. Why did Peter fail to appear at the last moment? Was it because he lacked the confidence to take care of a woman who would rely solely on him, as Sullivan had feared? Or was he overwhelmed by the opposition from Keller's family and Sullivan? In the years that followed, Keller lived her life as a single woman, passing away at the age of 87 in 1968. Even before her death, she recalled her love for Peter Fagan as a small island of joy surrounded by dark waves. According to biographer Dorothy Herman, who published a biography titled Helen Keller, A Life in 1998, the reason Peter Fagan did not appear on the day of their promise remains unclear. However, later, Keller received a letter from Peter's daughter, Ginger, which read, "Hello, I am Ginger, Peter Fagan's daughter. If you don't mind me asking, could you tell me why my father kept your photograph in his study all his life?" A novel capturing Keller's sad love story was published in 2012. Written by female author Rosie Sultan, who had admired Keller since childhood, the book is titled Helen Keller in Love. In 2016, a play called A Small Island of Joy, by Christopher Carson, was also published. These works portray Keller as a woman aspiring to live a normal life against the societal prejudice of her time that believed disabled people might have disabled children. The publication of these novels and plays raises the question of whether Keller's life, which transcended societal stereotypes, inspired such artistic creations. It is a testament to the fact that Keller was a progressive woman who longed for an ordinary life. And if God had granted her sight, the person she would have most wanted to see would have been someone else. I would spend 3 days seeing the world. On the first day, I would look at the face of the one I love. On the second day, I would witness the miracle of night turning into morning. On the third day, I would like to see the ordinary streets where people pass by. Undoubtedly, seeing is the greatest blessing. Helen Keller, from her 1903 book The Story of My Life.
Thank you for watching.